So starting with drought resilience, we want to first think about conservation of water commercially and domestically in households, etc. But conservation probably won't get us through any droughts. In other words, we need to find new ways to use water that's underutilized in the state. And that's what we're doing here today, is talking about the science that would allow us to take brackish water or salt water or produced water from oil and gas and use that in ways that would help with those conservation efforts. So replenishing aquifers in New Mexico relies on, again, that notion of how do we conserve water, but also how do we use water that is of lower quality for manufacturing and commercial operations. So the more we use drinking water for just that drinking, and the more we use that off-spec water or lower quality water for manufacturing, we're actually replenishing the aquifers by doing that. The idea of piping in water from where, right? That's the question. Phoenix is now pumping in water from California. California is running out of water. Texas is having water shortages. So we have to think about solving our problems as New Mexicans when it comes to water. And the idea of pumping in water is probably not something that is as viable economically as it is to start conserving water here and then treating brackish and produced water here. So drought is definitely having an effect on ag in our region. Right now, New Mexico is actually paying farmers to stop farming because of water shortages and water obligations with the state of Texas and elsewhere. So we need to think about how are we going to conserve water and what are the ways in which we're going to move forward as a state so that our ag industry is less impacted by the drying of our climate. So fracking has a direct impact on freshwater supplies. And in about 2019, the legislature passed a law that said no more using of fresh water for fracking purposes. And that law, once passed, really focused on having oil and gas companies recycle a lot of their water. So oil and gas is using less fresh water today than they had in the past, but it's still not enough. We still need to think about how oil and gas can reuse the water that they're pulling out of the ground for further hydraulic fracturing in the state. So the legislature could pass the strategic water supply, and the administration is going to bring back a number of water conservation bills in the 60-day session. And we hope our education here in Las Cruces with key legislators as well as industry, NGOs, really creates a groundswell for those bills to pass the legislative session when we get back together. And that might be the single most important thing we could do, is set some certainty as to where we're going as New Mexico so that we get those conservation measures and that economic development all aligned around the notion that water is life.